There is a small booklet that some people carry that lets them walk into 192 different countries without ever applying for a visa. No embassy appointment. No bank statement. No interview. Just board the plane and go. And there is another booklet, held by hundreds of millions of people around the world, that grants access to fewer than 30 countries, with almost every other destination requiring a lengthy, uncertain, and often humiliating visa application process. That is the reality of passport power in 2026. And today I am going to walk you through the 10 most powerful passports in the entire world right now, based on the most current Henley Passport Index data, what makes them so powerful, why some countries have climbed dramatically while others have fallen, and what this all means for the rest of us navigating a world where your passport often determines your opportunities before you have done anything else to earn or deserve them. This video covers real, current 2026 data, the surprising rise of one country in particular, the dramatic fall of two countries that used to dominate this list, and where Nigeria and other countries sit in the bigger picture. Let us get into it. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Praise and I run Social and Travels, a travel and migration support company that helps people navigate visa applications, international relocation, and global mobility. The passport you hold is one of the most significant factors determining your access to the world, and understanding how passport power actually works, and why it shifts over time, gives you real insight into global politics, economics, and travel strategy. Let us break down the top 10. Before we get into the rankings, let me explain exactly what we are measuring and how. The ranking I am using throughout this video is the Henley Passport Index, widely regarded as the original and most authoritative global passport ranking. It has been published since 2005 and is based on exclusive data from the International Air Transport Association, IATA, specifically their thematic database, which airlines themselves use to determine travel document requirements. The index covers 199 passports and 227 travel destinations worldwide, and it is updated monthly, with quarterly editions that capture the most significant shifts. Here is exactly how the scoring works. A passport receives 1 point for every destination its holder can access without needing to obtain a visa in advance. This includes destinations that are fully visa-free as well as those offering visa on arrival or electronic travel authorization processes that do not require approval before departure. A passport receives 0 points for any destination requiring a visa that must be approved before travel, including standard e-visas that require pre-approval. The total of these scores becomes the passport's overall ranking position. It is worth knowing that the Henley Index is not the only passport ranking that exists. Arton Capital publishes a similar passport index using slightly different methodology. They give credit for any form of facilitated entry including electronic travel authorizations, which sometimes produces different results. For example, on Arton's ranking, the UAE actually ranks first place, while Henley places Singapore first. Both indexes paint a broadly similar overall picture, but the specific numbers and exact positions can vary slightly depending on which methodology you are looking at. For this video we are using the Henley Index specifically, as it remains the most widely cited and referenced ranking globally. One more important thing to understand. A destination counted as visa-free does not mean zero requirements at all. It may still require an electronic travel authorization, a digital arrival card, or an online declaration before you travel. Visa-free simply means you do not need pre-approval through a formal visa application. It does not mean there are no requirements whatsoever. Now let us count down the 10 most powerful passports in the world right now, based on the April 2026 Henley Passport Index update, the most recent edition available. Number 10. United States, 179 visa-free destinations. We are starting our countdown with a name that surprises a lot of people once they hear the full context, the United States. The US passport provides visa-free access to 179 destinations worldwide, which keeps it within the top 10, but notably behind where it used to sit historically. Here is the story behind this number that makes it genuinely fascinating. The United States has experienced one of the steepest declines in passport ranking history. The US passport has fallen 6 places over the past 2 decades, from 4th position down to 10th, making it the 3rd largest ranking decline of any country in the entire 20-year history of the index, behind only Venezuela and Vanuatu. In just the past year alone, the US passport lost visa-free access to 7 destinations. What is driving this decline? According to Misha Glenny, a journalist and academic who commented on the report, passport power ultimately reflects political stability, diplomatic credibility, and the ability to shape international rules. As geopolitical relationships shift and domestic politics become more turbulent, the practical mobility that a passport provides shifts along with it. There is also a fascinating asymmetry worth knowing. While US passport holders enjoy visa-free access to 179 destinations, the United States itself only allows 46 other nationalities to enter the US without a prior visa, placing the US at 78th out of 199 countries on a separate measure called the Henley Openness Index. This means the US asks for far more from visitors than it receives in reciprocal treatment from other nations, one of the widest such gaps in the entire world, second only to Australia. Number 9. Malaysia, 180 visa-free destinations. Malaysia holds the 9th position with visa-free access to 180 destinations. Malaysia has been a consistently strong performer in Southeast Asia, leveraging robust diplomatic relationships and an extensive network of bilateral visa waiver agreements built up over years of strategic foreign policy. Malaysia's position demonstrates an important broader truth about passport power. Strong regional and international diplomatic engagement, even from a country that is not among the world's largest economies, can produce remarkably strong travel mobility for its citizens. Number 8. Canada, 181 to 182 visa-free destinations. Canada sits in 8th position, with visa-free access to between 181 and 182 destinations depending on the specific monthly update. Canada has long been considered one of the most globally respected passports, reflecting the country's stable democratic institutions, strong international relationships, and consistent diplomatic engagement across virtually every region of the world. For context relevant to many of our viewers, Canada's passport strength is part of the broader package of benefits that make Canadian citizenship so consistently attractive for skilled immigrants from around the world, including the Nigerian professionals we have covered extensively on this channel pursuing pathways like express entry. Number 7. United Kingdom, 182 to 183 visa-free destinations. The United Kingdom holds 7th position, with visa-free access to between 182 and 183 destinations. Like the United States, the UK has experienced a significant decline in its ranking over time, falling 4 places since 2006, when it ranked 3rd worldwide. The UK has also recorded one of the steepest annual losses in the most recent update, shedding 7 destinations from its visa-free access in just the past year. This decline mirrors the same broader pattern we saw with the United States, both English-speaking, historically dominant Western powers experiencing what analysts describe as an erosion of mobility rights tied to broader shifts in transatlantic relations and domestic political volatility. Number 6. Australia, 182 visa-free destinations. Australia ranks 6th, sharing a very similar score to the UK with visa-free access to 182 destinations. Australia has maintained consistently strong passport power due to its robust economy, stable governance, and active diplomatic relationships throughout the Asia-Pacific region and beyond. Interestingly, Australia faces the single widest gap of any country between its outbound mobility and inbound openness, meaning Australian citizens can travel to far more countries visa-free than the number of nationalities Australia itself permits to enter without a visa. This is the same asymmetry we saw with the United States, but even more pronounced for Australia specifically. Number 5. A cluster of European countries, 184 to 185 visa-free destinations. Fifth position is held by a cluster of countries that vary slightly depending on the specific monthly update, generally including Hungary, Portugal, Slovakia, Slovenia, and notably the United Arab Emirates, each typically scoring around 184 destinations. In other updates throughout 2026, this tier has included Austria, Belgium, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Ireland, Italy, the Netherlands, and Norway at the 185 mark. This cluster demonstrates one of the most consistent patterns in the entire index. European Union membership and the associated network of mutual visa waiver agreements continues to provide extraordinarily strong passport power to a large number of countries simultaneously, even smaller or historically less internationally dominant EU member states. Number 4. A larger European cluster, 185 to 186 visa-free destinations. Fourth position is held by an even larger group of countries, predominantly European, generally scoring around 185 to 186 destinations. Depending on the specific monthly update throughout 2026, this group has included Belgium, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Ireland, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Norway, Spain, and Switzerland. The sheer number of countries clustered at this level reflects something important about how the modern passport power landscape works. A record number of passports now cluster extremely close together at the very top of the index, even as the gap between the top and bottom of the overall ranking continues to widen dramatically. Mobility at the top is becoming more equally distributed among wealthy, stable nations, even as the bottom of the ranking becomes increasingly isolated. Number 3. Sweden and other top European performers, 186 visa-free destinations. Third position, in several 2026 updates, has been held by Sweden specifically, alongside Denmark, Luxembourg, Spain, and Switzerland, each scoring 186 visa-free destinations. Sweden's consistently strong performance reflects its stable governance, EU membership, and long history of active and constructive international diplomacy. Number 2, tied Japan, South Korea, and the United Arab Emirates, 187 to 190 visa-free destinations. This is where the story gets genuinely fascinating. Second place worldwide is held jointly by 3 countries, Japan, South Korea, and, in one of the most remarkable developments in the entire 20-year history of this index, the United Arab Emirates. Japan and South Korea reaching this position is consistent with a broader pattern we have seen over the past decade, Asian economic powers leveraging strong, stable governance and extensive international economic relationships to climb dramatically in global mobility rankings, displacing the historically dominant Western European and North American passports that used to sit comfortably at the very top of this index for generations. But the United Arab Emirates joining them at second place is the standout story of the entire 2026 ranking. The UAE has been the single strongest performer in the entire 20-year history of the Henley Passport Index, adding an extraordinary 149 visa-free destinations since 2006 and climbing 57 places up the rankings over that period. No other country has climbed anywhere close to that dramatically. This achievement is attributed specifically to the UAE's sustained diplomatic engagement and active visa liberalization policy, a deliberate, sustained, decades-long strategic effort to build and expand bilateral travel agreements around the entire world. The UAE's rise is genuinely one of the most remarkable transformations in modern diplomatic history, from a passport that offered relatively limited travel freedom just 2 decades ago to one that now sits among the most powerful in the world, on par with two of Asia's most established economic powers. Number 1. Singapore, 192 visa-free destinations. And at the very top of the world, for the third consecutive year, sits Singapore, the single most powerful passport on Earth, providing its holders with visa-free access to 192 out of 227 possible destinations worldwide. That means a Singaporean citizen can travel to roughly 85% of the entire world without ever needing to apply for a visa in advance. Singapore's continued dominance reflects the country's extraordinary diplomatic reach relative to its small physical size, built through decades of careful, strategic, mutually beneficial international relationship building, a globally respected and stable government, and one of the strongest economies in the world relative to population. Singapore has held or shared the number 1 position for the better part of the last several years, and based on current trends, shows no signs of relinquishing that position anytime soon. Now that we have covered the top 10, I want to spend some time on what I consider the single most important story in this entire report, because it says something significant about the state of the world in 2026. The 2026 Henley Passport Index reveals what its own analysts describe as a growing divide between the world's most and least mobile populations. At the very bottom of the index sits Afghanistan, whose passport provides access to just 23 to 24 destinations without a prior visa, depending on the specific monthly update, making it the lowest-ranked passport for yet another consecutive year. Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and Pakistan also remain clustered near the very bottom of the rankings. Here is the number that should genuinely shock you. The gap between Singapore at the top and Afghanistan at the bottom stands at 169 destinations. That means a Singaporean citizen has access to roughly 169 more countries without a visa than an Afghan citizen does. This is the largest gap recorded in the entire 20-year history of this index. And remarkably, both the top-ranked country and the bottom-ranked country recorded their steepest annual losses in this particular update, with Singapore shedding 7 destinations and Afghanistan shedding 8. This tells us something important. Even as the world becomes more interconnected in many ways, mobility itself, the practical freedom to simply travel, is becoming more unevenly distributed, not less. Political stability, diplomatic relationships, and international perception of a country's citizens increasingly determine opportunity in ways that have nothing to do with an individual person's character, qualifications, or intentions. I want to bring this conversation home to where most of you watching are coming from. Where does Nigeria, and Africa more broadly, sit in this global picture? Nigeria's passport currently provides visa-free access to approximately 44 destinations worldwide, placing it significantly below the global leaders we just discussed, and reflecting the broader pattern across much of the African continent. Other African nations face similarly limited mobility. Somalia's passport provides access to around 32 destinations, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo's passport provides access to around 43 destinations. This is not a reflection of Nigerian people individually. It reflects the same broader pattern that drives every position on this index: diplomatic relationships, perceived migration and overstay risk by other governments, economic agreements, and historical bilateral relationships between nations. African, Middle Eastern, and South Asian passports broadly rank lower than European, North American, and increasingly, leading Asian and Gulf nation passports, not because of anything about the individual citizens of those countries, but because of the accumulated diplomatic positioning of their governments over decades. I want to highlight one specific, very relevant point. Processing visas and long-term residence applications is generally easier for nationals of countries with stronger passports, because consular and immigration authorities often factor passport strength into their risk assessment when reviewing applications. Applicants from lower-ranked passport countries, including Nigeria, frequently face stricter scrutiny, more extensive documentation requirements, and statistically lower visa approval rates, largely due to perceived migration or overstay risk associated with their nationality as a whole, regardless of their individual circumstances. This is precisely why so much of the content on this channel focuses on helping Nigerians navigate visa applications successfully despite this structural disadvantage, because understanding the system you are working within, and preparing accordingly, is how you overcome a disadvantage that exists at the level of national diplomacy rather than anything about you personally. Before we close out, I want to give you a framework for understanding why these rankings shift over time, because passport power is not fixed, and understanding the forces behind it helps you understand global affairs more broadly. Countries climb in passport ranking when they actively negotiate new visa waiver agreements with other nations, strengthen their economies and international trade relationships, demonstrate sustained political stability over time, and build broader diplomatic credibility and trust with other governments. The UAE's remarkable two-decade rise we discussed earlier is the textbook example of exactly this kind of sustained, deliberate diplomatic strategy paying off dramatically. Countries fall in ranking when diplomatic relationships deteriorate, domestic political instability increases, international perception of migration or security risk associated with that nationality rises, or broader geopolitical relationships shift unfavorably. The declines we have seen from the United States and the United Kingdom over the past 2 decades, both falling significantly from positions they dominated in 2006, illustrate this side of the equation clearly. This tells us that passport power, while it feels fixed and inherited the moment we are born into a particular nationality, is actually the product of constant, ongoing diplomatic work by governments, work that can move a country's standing significantly in either direction over time, as we have seen so dramatically with the UAE's rise and the relative declines of historically dominant Western passports. And that is the complete picture of the 10 most powerful passports in the world in 2026, Singapore holding firm at the very top, the UAE's extraordinary historic rise into a tie for second place, the continued strength of European passports throughout the upper rankings, and the notable, ongoing decline of the United States and the United Kingdom from positions they once dominated. What I hope you take from this video is not just an interesting list of numbers, but a genuine understanding of how global mobility actually works, and why, for so many of us, including so much of this channel's audience here in Nigeria, navigating the visa system intelligently and strategically is not optional. It is the practical reality of working within a global system where your passport's power was largely determined before you were even born, by diplomatic decisions made over decades by people you will never meet. That is exactly why this channel exists, to make sure that whatever passport you hold, you have the knowledge and the strategy to navigate the world as effectively as possible. If this video gave you a clearer picture of global mobility in 2026, please give it a thumbs up and share it with anyone who would find this genuinely interesting. Subscribe to the channel for more travel insights, visa guides, and migration content made specifically for people navigating this complex global system. Drop a comment telling me where your passport ranks and whether that number surprised you. I read every single comment and would love to hear from you. And if you need help navigating visa applications for any of the destinations we have discussed on this channel, reach out to Social and Travels. The link is in the description. See you in the next video.